We had a number of people who registered for the film, so they may have seen it, but they may not join us tonight.
Absolutely, yeah, I know.
Watch it later on. Okay, we have a couple more, so that's good. So it's 7:02. In a couple of seconds, I'll start. So Rabbi, if you think I should start, I'll go ahead.
Sure.
Yes, okay. So, oops. So welcome to Agutarahim, Katia, and welcome to all who have joined us tonight to meet the director, editor, and producer of Shtetlers. I am Mary Gross and have the pleasure to co-host this Q&A session with Rabbi Spitzer. This is a program sponsored by our congregation's Adult Education Committee, of which Rabbi Spitzer and I are members. So before introducing Katia, we would like to first recognize the generosity of our sponsors who have donated at various levels so that we can continue to bring films of interest to the Jewish community, such as this beautiful and educational documentary. So thank you everyone on behalf of the Adult Education Committee. Thank you for all the donors, sponsors, producers, supporters, and directors who made this film possible. So Rabbi, I know that you were thinking of making some preliminary remarks. I don't know if this is the right time.
Sure. Thank you so much, Mary, and thank you, Katya, for joining us.
Thank you.
Watched the film this afternoon, and I was really struck by the way that you weaved both stories of Jewish people and stories of non-Jewish people who were impacted by what it meant to live in the shtetl, interwoven throughout the film. And I've been spending a lot of time thinking about rising anti-Semitism, about what it means to live in majority non-Jewish contexts as a Jew. That's been very present for me the last few weeks. And watching this film really reminded me about how those questions of what it means to live a life embedded in a culture, embedded with other folks, that's not a new question. And it's not an American question or a Schenectady question. It's really speaks to what it means to be Jewish or even just a minority in any place, and certainly has been a pattern in Jewish history. And this film, I thought, so beautifully spoke to the way that communities interweave. And so to me, that was one of the most powerful parts of it. And for that reason alone, I'm excited that we were able to share it with our community and to bring you to talk to us. So thank you for making the time, and I'm really excited to engage in this conversation.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me and for viewing the film and for such a great takeaway. I'm really very honored that you watched the film and that you liked it.
Well, thank you so much, Rabbi. So a few words about Katia. Katia Ustinova is a Russian-born documentary filmmaker living in New York City. Prior to becoming a documentary filmmaker, Katia worked as a TV producer, scriptwriter, and reporter for almost 10 years. She received her Master of Fine Arts degree from the School of Visual Arts in New York, where she was awarded the Paula Rhodes Award for Exceptional Achievement in Documentary Filmmaking for her thesis film. Shtetlers won the 2020 Laurel Branch National TV and Documentary Film Award. It was the official selection of the 2020 Calgary International Film Festival, the Flickers Rhode Island International Film Festival, and the 2021 Miami Jewish Film Festival. and it was presented at the 2020 Art Doc Fest. Shtetlers traces the secret story of small Jewish towns in the former Soviet Union through the stories of 9 very different people, now scattered around the world, who once belonged to the Shtetl community. Only a few Shtetls survived the Holocaust, and those were all located in the territory of modern Ukraine and Moldova. So, Katya, when and what made you decide to do a documentary about the Shtetl communities in Ukraine and Moldova?
Well, thank you very much for this question. Well, my fascination with the theme of small Jewish towns started when my father, back in Moscow, created the Museum of Jewish History in Russia. So it's a unique collection. Its unique collection remains the most authentic, I would say, exhibit of Jewish life in Russia. And that was back in 2011. And by that time, I just graduated from School of Visual Arts and was sort of looking for my next theme for the film. And my father kept talking just about that. And when my father's team of researchers and his curators started bringing artifacts from the outskirts of the former Soviet Union, such as cookware, furniture, religious items, and such, I discovered a whole new world for myself that I was not aware of. And he was so fascinated and got me fascinated. So, and then I talked to his researchers and sort of found out for myself that there were living people behind these objects. There were still Jews living in these remote places that used to be very Jewish during the Soviet period. So, and that's how I began traveling to these places. I started first with Ukraine because they still had connections there. So that's how I started traveling to Ukraine and Moldova. And since I lived in the US, already lived back then in the US, I started looking for characters here in the US, and that's how I found my US-based characters. So, and then I also thought that I needed to have someone living in Israel, and that's how I found my Israeli character, who is a complete, like, as you can guess from the film, he's a convert. He used to be Ukrainian. His mother hid Jews during the war. So it's all so complex and so, like at the same time, simple. And so, as the rabbi said, so interwoven. That was a very, very unique world. And I can tell you that it was not right away that I sort of knew that this would be a film about Jews and non-Jews living next to each other. That was a process. I first started out like knowing that there are these people out there and that their interviews would be so precious. And I even didn't know if this would be a film or I'm just sort of capturing the last remnants of this world to sort of probably for them to be a part of my father's museum, which is also a plan in my head, because I actually interviewed many more people than you see in the film. So the film has its own sort of structure, and I had to select characters. Sure. And I selected these 9, well, pretty fascinating characters that are, each character sort of is for a certain exists in the film for a certain purpose. And yeah, but there were many more, and my plan is to sort of incorporate them one day into my father's museum. And yeah, so if anyone goes to Russia one day or to Moscow, the museum is located in Moscow. It's an amazing museum.
That's wonderful to know. So when was Shtetlers officially released? because I have a date from the web 2020, and then I found a date that it was released in Russia on April 7, 2021. So I don't know what is the official release date.
You know, it's hard to say. I mean, like the first festival, it's hard to say where do we sort of what's the, I don't know. I mean, like, since now I have my North American distributor, Film Movement, I don't know, probably they would put 2020. But the very first screening in the US was at Rhode Island Film Festival. And I wanted to add two more festivals to the ones you've already mentioned.
Yes.
That's after Miami, there was Sarasota Film Festival.
That's great. Okay.
And after Sarasota, there was the film just screened at Krakow Film Festival, which is a great festival in Europe. Very, very, one of the Europe's oldest film festivals.
Oh, that's
And yeah, and I want to stress that I really like when this particular film is playing not just at you know, like specifically Jewish film festivals. It makes me very happy when the audience is broader,
sure.
when it's sort of like a regular film festival, because it sort of attracts non-Jewish audience to it.
Yeah, you may have covered this partially, but I'm going to ask the question anyway.
Yeah, sure.
As you point out at the beginning of the film, Jews lived in Eastern Europe, Shtetlers, for hundreds of years, since the 13th century, I believe, until the 20th, though they're still living there, in towns where they could live pious, industrious lives. So each one of your characters supports that statement with their stories, and each seems to be a natural storyteller. So how did you find Nadia, Volodya, Sofia, Vladimir, Isaac, I have the list here, Emilia, Shmilo, you know, Slava? How did you find them? And I think you covered partially, but they are so unique.
Yeah, sure.
So special and such storytellers. Go ahead.
All right. Yeah. I'm gonna delve into it. So yeah, with every character, it was a different story. Like, for instance, I knew that I had to go to Shargorod because Shargorod was the most authentic, and I believe still is the most authentically sort of preserved shtetl. Although the majority of shooting took place, I guess, 5 years ago, 4 to 5 years ago. Well, unfortunately, the half of my characters are no longer alive.
Okay.
And sadly, Volodya, who is relatively young, Volodya, the hat maker, he passed away. Emilia, who turned 99 in the film, passed away. Isaac passed away 2 years ago. I'm still in contact with his daughters, and they loved the film and were very grateful for this film. So I can just name these people who are still alive, and these would be only Slava, Slava, the singer in the end, Slava Farber, who revisits his hometown and his house, and who else? And Sophia and Vladimir, who is the convert. These are like three only characters who are still living. I believe that Nadia was also alive, yeah, but the rest are gone, unfortunately. So in this respect, I mean, I was really fortunate to capture these people, and this means that this world was really the last glimpse into this world. So with every character, it was different. For instance, with Shmilo and the rabbi from Chernovitz, they were my very first contacts. And actually with Shmilo, I just had only one shooting day or two, I was unable to revisit him again because he also passed away. He passed away many years ago, so I was even unable to see him for the second time. With Sophia, for instance, she was the mother of a friend of my father who owned a restaurant in Moscow. So when I just visited this restaurant with my father, he said, "Oh, you are making a film about Shtetl. You should talk to my mother. She lives in Philadelphia." And that's how I met her. And I mean, like, for maybe the second time I saw her, she said, "I'm gonna cook a gefilte fish for you." So and we're great friends with Sophia. And there was also the film also screened at Philadelphia Jewish Cine Mondays, not Jewish, they're called Lindy Cine Mondays, and they were very happy that they had a character living in Philadelphia.
Sure.
Who else? Yeah, again, I knew I had to go to Shargorod, and in Shargorod, there was this lady that actually didn't end up being in my film. She was Jewish. She was relatively young. She was from the sort of like post-war generation. She belonged to the same generation as my father, and she had a tiny museum that was located in like next to this synagogue. You see this synagogue in the film.
Yes.
That is like badly in a like badly deteriorated. The good news is that they started the renovation of this synagogue, which was in such a bad shape for almost all these years, and it's a like 16th century synagogue. So the good news is that they found some money from Australia, I guess, and now it's being renovated. So this woman in Shargorod, she had a museum that was a sort of like adjunct to this synagogue, but it was located in an auto repair shop. So it was not really a museum. And then what happened that after we met, back then she already knew my father because he wanted to buy all the artifacts from her museum, and she was not selling it. She was not giving it away. But next time I appeared for the second time, she was ready to sort of, I don't want to say she sold it, but sort of transferred her artifacts to my father's museum, which is now a part of my father's museum. And she told me about Volodya, the hat maker, and he lived close by, and we became great friends. And I managed to see how he makes these hats.
Yes.
And they were just a great couple. So I mean, like with this film, it took so many years in the making that and with Isaac, for instance, I think I just, I don't know, probably was just a word of mouth. And with Amelia as well, I somehow learned that there was these aged and very interesting characters, each with everyone, each of them had an interesting story. So yeah, different ways.
Very, very nice. Well, I mean, I love that you open and close the film with Nadia and Volodya. They represent hope. An Orthodox Christian couple who grew up with Jews, learned our traditions from their grandparents and firsthand experience, and adapted them to their household. The Easter meal at the end of the movie combines elements of Passover, and Volodya's thoughts as he touches the mezuzah are particularly touching. So how did you accomplish such smoothness in their story? I mean, did you rehearse with them, or did they start talking and everything flowed? I mean, the stories from Volodya are just fascinating.
Yeah, I think he was just he was a great man. I loved him so dearly. That's why probably I opened the film with him, because I wanted to show the non-Jewish, once I knew what my film was about. like I said, like I mentioned, it was not right away. It was also a process. Um, so once I knew that, I wanted to start with the non-Jewish side, and Volodya he was just the best, to sort of show it. And by the way, um, I have an account, an Instagram account for the film, where I occasionally post interview bites that didn't make it into the film or were used as a voiceover in the film. And there's a lot. I mean, like Volodya, he could talk for hours about how he loved Jews and how they were his friends and how they taught him his profession. So he was just there were tons of material that I just, like, structurally and thematically couldn't use in the film, because the film has its own ways, and own editing, and again, time limitation. uh but Volodya was really, he just told me so many stories of how they lived next to each other. um he remembered the burial ceremony, and I'm gonna be posting these stories too. So yeah, they were just a fantastic couple. And again, how, I mean, like, it was them who brought up, okay, Nadia, I remember from seeing her for the second time, I guess, she said, I'm gonna cook a babka for you. And I said, okay, I need to film that. And like next day I arrive, and she's so fluent in this babka. And by the way, this babka was just fantastic, really. That was a very good babka.
Yeah.
And because obviously I ate it with them, and it was really good, especially accompanied with the moonshine that they were making, like sort of like their own vodka.
Yes, yes.
That was just incredible.
That's a great scene when they're eating together and looking at all the plates that they had cooked, that she had cooked.
And really, they just happened to have this matzah. I didn't bring it with me. I mean, like, I was not sort of interfering. And actually, Volodya explained why they had matzah. I think that there were some Jews living in Shargorod, but more from the, like, younger generation. I think that even the mayor of Shargorod back then was Jewish. I haven't met with him, but I think that for some reason it was Volodya living in this Jewish home, Jewish house, that he was sort of responsible for I don't know, distribution of matzah they got from somewhere. I don't know, maybe from Kiev, from Ukraine. Yeah.
Well, he certainly has it on the Easter plate, right?
Yeah.
He has the mass on the Easter plate. And I was thinking of Emilia Kessler, who was such a lovely woman. And I was thinking of the scene where she's in the cab going to the balalaika performance. And I was wondering how you filmed that, because she gets into an argument with a cab driver. And I thought that was such
Who is Russian, yeah. Who is Russian.
Such a cute scene.
But that was a completely unexpected and unplanned sort of moment and scene. That's why I included it, because it's so funny, in a way that it was a Russian cab driver, supposedly from Brighton Beach, the way he spoke, and he was obviously Jewish too. So, but that's something that could happen only in New York, and that was not planned. That I didn't sort of.
You just happened to be there.
Yes. Yeah.
The let's see, I'm just thinking what you answered about Sophia being a fabulous cook, and so was Nadia, of course. And so really, I mean, it was these coincidences that supported the premise that all these Jewish traditions were passed through generations, right? I mean, it was not planned. You found out about them and they just cooked for you, and you saw all the traditions, right, that were passed on to them, right?
That's how I understood how they preserved their religion through the because all of that was happening at the backdrop of Soviet oppression. So no one actually, not just the Jews, but the Christians too, were. That was all. That was all. I mean, like during the Soviet era, and these were Soviet shtetl Jews, so to say. They were all Soviet people, and everything, like all religious observation, whether that be Christian or Jewish, happened in secrecy. At least that's what they all told me. But again, Volodya, that's not in the film, but he had a different kind of memory of that. He said we were not allowed, like as Christians, we were not allowed to go to the church. That was, or I mean, like if they went, that was in secrecy. But he said, but the Jews, they could go to the river and pray, and he remembered seeing that when he was a kid. I don't know, probably because of the fact that Shargorod was so remote from even from Vinnytsia, which is a bigger Ukrainian town and the closest Ukrainian town to Shargorod. Actually, it's like 160 miles, probably 180 miles from Vinnytsia.
Rabbi, I didn't know if you wanted to make a comment. Rabbi, I don't know if Rabbi was going to make a comment. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, it was back when we were discussing the end of the film. I wanted to know more about the choice of ending with that scene.
I think that I like probably in all of my all my films, all like with my second film too, I like to have the beginning and the ending sort of like kind of the same. We begin with Volodya and Nadia, and we sort of like enclose with them. Make it like it's important for me that they lived when I filmed them. They stayed there with the good memories of this neighborship that they had, and it makes like this ending makes the film more sort of poignant and that this world is lost. It doesn't exist anymore. It exists only in the memory of these people, and the memory is good. So yes. I don't know if this answers this question. And I sort of I like to begin and end with the same people.
Yeah.
And it sort of like encapsulates the whole idea of this world. And the feeling that you get that this world is gone.
Yeah, definitely got that feeling. And certainly if the primary keepers of Jewish traditions are not Jewish, that is heartbreaking as a Jew. I was left with a little bit of a question about cultural appropriation. I like really wondered, like, here are some people who think that it's a part of their Christian identity to cook Jewish food. And I was sort of struggling with that sadness that I was feeling about the loss of this whole world, and that the only keepers of it are not Jewish. coupled with my sort of visceral reaction to them describing Passover as our Easter. I'm sorry, nope.
No, I'm gonna explain it. I think there is some kind of like misunderstanding. I don't think there is a cultural appropriation going on there. Have you ever been to Ukraine? So if
So
you go
I've been
to
to Poland.
Ukraine,
I haven't.
yeah,
I've been to Poland, but I haven't been to Ukraine.
I think it was so like the cooking traditions got so interwoven. So, and we're talking about here, we're talking about just they probably love matzah and they just sort of put it on their table. They're not appropriating like there is no cultural appropriation going on there, in my
I don't know.
opinion.
In the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, there was like a huge push among American Jews to make sure that Soviet Jewry could have their matzah, right?
Mhm.
Which was blocked by the Soviet government. And right, I don't know if other people remember. I don't remember because I'm too young, but I remember the stories about it. If other people on this call remember, what it meant to talk every Passover about freeing the Soviet Jewry and making sure that they were able to practice their holidays, and to just see people like freely getting matzah when our people struggled for so many decades to be able to practice their religion. Like there was some aspect of discomfort about it.
Hmm. It's interesting. I never heard a comment like this before. It's interesting because what I wanted to say is that if you go to a Ukrainian restaurant, you'll find gefilte fish there. I mean, like, and the Jews cooked borscht, and that's Ukrainian. So I mean, like in terms of cooking traditions, that was absolutely it was
Interwoven.
interwoven, and it was a mix, and it is still a mix. So they lived so closely to each other that they just sort of like took the Jews took the borscht, and I guess there is also a Polish borscht, and there were also all different sorts of gefilte fish. It was prepared differently in each region. In one region, it was more salty. In other region, it was more on the sweet side. So and I don't think they're appropriating anything. Well, he's touching the mezuzah because he was again, this is not in the film, but his mother spoke Yiddish because she worked at a Jewish house, and she knew how to cook kosher meals. She knew that, like, at least, I mean, like, at least what he told me when he talked about that. So, but that was before the war. That
Yeah,
was before the war.
it's definitely there's definitely not one side to this. That is to say,
Mhm.
it's obvious how much respect and love that they had for Jewish traditions, for Jewish cuisine, and for their own like family's relationship to the Jewish people. And right, we know from history, and it was brought up in your film, that
Mhm.
a lot of their neighbors harbored resentment that they were always the house servants in wealthier Jewish families' houses, right? His mother is an example of that, right? She was
Yeah.
their cook. And he ended up with a love of Jewish food and a love of the Jews who supported his mother. But he could have ended up, like many of his other contemporaries, with a resentment of the Jewish people and sort of a relief that they were no longer there, like many Eastern Europeans who, you know, who who were, sympathetic to the Nazi regime, and who turned their neighbors over. And I mean, like both sides of it are there.
Yeah, that's true. But that's what was there, and that's what they had to go through, not just peaceful times, but during the war. Yeah, that was pretty bad. And actually, Volodya's mother also, Volodya, the hat maker, the one we're talking about right now, his mother also hid Jews. But again, I mean, like, I couldn't couldn't add everything to one film, but not everyone did that.
Yeah. I think what is
Well, go ahead.
I think what is very interesting about Volodya is their tremendous respect for the intellect of the Jews and their craft, because he details how he learns how to make hats from this doctor. He calls him Dr. Leonid, or, and the respect that he has for him, for making him a hat maker, because he was raising pigs, right? So he talks about how he taught him and how he wanted to take him to Israel when he leaves. And there is a scene where he explains how this gentleman, is leaving towards Israel, and he's so sorry to leave Volodya behind. And there's a comment from Volodya.
Yeah, I think it just
tremendous respect for what the Jews knew and what they were able to share. In Volodya's case, obviously, he learned it and he became a hat maker. So he was a successful craftsman, right? Based on the teachings of a Jew who lived in the shtetl, right?
Yeah.
So I just saw that tremendous respect. And then, like the rabbi says, all these appropriations of, or may not be appropriations, but this respect for the Jewish traditions, and also a follower of Orthodox Christianism. I mean, he was an Orthodox Christian, right? And you see things in Easter and all of that. But anyway, it's just fascinating. It's just such a rich film, really. But I wanted to just go ahead and ask you about the animations in the introduction and at the end of the movie. They are absolutely lovely. And I was wondering if you want to comment on the artist who created them.
Yeah, this artist is actually, he's Ukrainian. And at first I thought that, and we actually planned to illustrate some other stories with this animation. And actually, if you noticed that in the end animation, they're making these holes in matzah.
Yes.
Because this was planned, and I do have this animation on Shtetlers Instagram account, so please sign up for it. I have the full version of this animation and the different one about something different. Because initially I thought that I wanted to illustrate different stories with this animation, but finally ended up just using it as the intro animation and end animation, where you see the credits, because I realized that we need to see the people more. And actually, my animation artist, his name is Sashko, he was very upset about it. And then I said, I'm using it. I really just found a way how to use it.
Yes.
I just found a way. I mean, like, there was a moment when he was so upset that I'm not using it at all. And I said, no, I'm using it because it cost a lot of money at the same time. And it was charming. And I loved how he sort of captured this world. And again, I wanted to stress that all of the animation, it was all based on particular specific references from the photographs from my father museum. So everything you see, especially in the opening animation, when there is a guy who is, probably it's not that readable because it just flies by so quickly, but there's this like guy with a beard who is holding a kind of like a backpack, but it's not a backpack. It's more like a basket, in a way of a backpack, and it's full of matzah, and it's an authentic photograph of a shtetl of a pre-war. That was pre-war, and I would say even pre-revolution time, like something like 1900s time. That was a Jewish man holding this basket full of matzah. And the other guy, the other one is also a reference. These are all like either artifacts or photographs that we used in the film.
Very beautiful. Anyway, I just wanted to make a comment about Slava. He's the only character in your film who grew up in a shtetl and went back to visit his home in Moldova, right? So I was wondering, when did he leave Moldova, and how is it possible that the house is intact? I mean, he goes in and finds his father's hat, you know, and
that was not staged again. That was not staged, honestly. I mean, like, these were these moments that these are like the documentary filmmakers, when you capture something like this, you're sort of happy. It makes you very happy because it was not staged. Okay, so he is a Yiddish singer, and just a regular singer as well. So back when I filmed him, back then he was living in Chisinau, in Chisinau, Moldova. That's the capital of Moldova. But now, I guess maybe 3 years ago, he moved to Baltimore, and so he lives in Baltimore now with his wife. So this would have made it much harder for me to travel with him from Baltimore to Virtugen. But back then he was living in Moldova, and Moldova is pretty small, so we just went there, and actually he's telling these locals, the non-Jewish locals, he's telling that his father was the last to leave this shtetl for Israel. So his father died already in Israel, and he knew where his house was, and he sold the house. But for some reason, why the house was intact is because, I don't know, we just entered it, and he sort of like, he knew no one was living there. Someone bought the house, but didn't end up living there for some reason. I don't know why. So we actually went there twice, but that's probably irrelevant. But when we went there for the first time, something went wrong with my camera, so I couldn't film, and I insisted on us going there for the second time. But again, the hat was there. I didn't place it there. It was there when the camera was working. It was there. Yeah.
Amazing story. So the beauty of Ukraine, which you convey so beautifully through panoramic scenes, reminds us of the vibrant life of Jews in those remote shtetls. And the interspersing scenes from World War II remind us of what has been destroyed. So as Volodia states at the beginning of the film, he says, "This place was full of life once. Everything is gone. It feels so very desolate, like in a fairy tale, it all ended." So that's a strong statement right there. But I was wondering, what is the source of the war clips that you introduced in the film? Because we haven't seen them in any documentary about World War II. They are very unique. And I was just wondering where you got them from.
Yeah, I'm happy I used something that was not seen yet. I had a great archival researcher in Moscow. He also I found him because I had connections in back from my TV past. So I found him, and I also also recommended him for my father's museum, and he found a lot of material, Jewish themed material, extremely interesting, for the museum and for my film as well. So these particular shots, I guess I remember seeing some Polish subtitles, but you could tell that these were the Ukrainian, or well, Poland is at the border of Ukraine, so it's very close. So these lines of people going down the road. I remember that I had this when I sort of when I decided to do the intercutting, to do the intercutting of these scenes with these roads. It's just like the way I saw these roads. And when I at that time, I think I already saw the archival footage. So when I was in Ukraine, I recognized these highways.
Yes.
And I thought that this would perfectly fit together with these beautiful images. So yeah,
it certainly works for the theme of your film, that's for sure. And Rabbi, I don't know if you have any other comments. I think I have only one more question left, but if you have any question, Rabbi, that you would like to ask at this point? No? You point out in the
can I say something?
Sure.
I was sure that the rabbi would ask me about the other rabbi in Chernovitz and about this practice that he is doing, and I have an answer to that.
Yeah, go ahead. I was very curious.
Yeah, because I was actually asked by, I remember there was a I have a friend in Moscow who is the head of Limud, the Jewish, the youth Jewish organization. He loved my film, and then he commented, but it's very, I mean, like this scene that you showed, but there are good rabbis, there are good rabbis out there. I don't know what he's doing there. And I said, you know what, actually this practice, that's what I learned from my father's researchers, that this particular practice existed for 200 years. The non-Jews went for advice and advice. They were seeking advice at with Jewish tzaddiks, right? They went to rabbis and prayed for them. I personally read a research made by my father's museum people about that. So that's an old tradition. That is, again, it is no longer there because Rabbi Noach passed away also, although he was relatively young. He was not 99 as Emilia Kessler, but this is not. Again, this was something I was fortunate to capture.
Yeah. As you point out in the movie, 2.7 million Jews were killed during the Holocaust in Russian territory. And now there are about 100,000 Jews living in Ukraine and about 4,000 Jews in Moldova. So what I found very interesting is that Yiddish is a recognized regional language in Ukraine. And there are many initiatives led by descendants and supporters of the Shtetlers communities to piece together remnants of this vibrant world. So your film certainly accomplishes that. So I guess I'm wondering if you know of any other initiatives, or if you are planning another film that pieces together this world that has been destroyed.
Apart from my father's museum, no, I don't think so. None that I'm aware of. I just had a very great talk with a tiny Jewish organization called Likrat in Moldova, and these were very young people. They loved the film, and I don't know. I mean, that's about it.
Maybe working on something, right?
Yeah. So, well, apart from my father's museum, I don't know about any
What did your father think
initiatives.
of the film?
Oh, he liked it. Yeah, he liked it. Eventually, yeah. I mean, like he didn't see it. I mean, I was not. Although he's an executive producer because he actually gave money. he That's why he's the executive producer. But he was not sort of he was not helping me, although he himself used to be a journalist, and then he used to be a crime story writer, and then a businessman, and then a founder of the Jewish Museum. So he's an interesting personality himself. But I was not giving him I was not showing him the film till almost the last moment. And he liked it. He's very proud, I guess.
So Katya, any other plans, any other film, any other documentaries that you are planning to work on or you're working on?
Well, my other films are non-Jewish themed. So one is about a guy who believed in the end of the world. That was actually my thesis film. And I finished this film in 2019. So, and the other film is about two sisters who never met. One was adopted into American family, and the other, along with her two brothers, and the other sister stayed in Russia. So they would meet. Hopefully, they would meet this July. I'm gonna bring one sister to see another, and they've been in. I actually found one sister for another. I got them acquainted.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, like there are again, there are many more characters that that were left out, including Belle Kaufman, if you ever heard about her. She was the granddaughter of Shalom Aleichem, and she was a writer herself. She wrote up the down staircase. So she was 102 when I interviewed her. I still, and I was thinking that she would be a part of this film, but then when I realized she would not be, I thought that maybe one day I need to make a short film about her, that because she's very interesting. And I don't know if you ever heard about her. She was an extravagant woman. So maybe a short film about her, that would be something Jewish themed, but the rest is not Jewish.
Mhm, mhm. So Rabbi, I don't know if there are any questions from the audience, from the attendees.
We're excited to open it up for questions and comments from our community. And I'm just going to invite anybody who would like to unmute and ask or comment.
Oh, I think Mark Handelman has a question.
Mark,
Yeah,
there you go.
I just want to say how much we enjoyed the documentary, and also, Mary, I'm very impressed with your interviewing skills.
Oh, that's sweet of you. I just had to do my homework, and the more I saw this movie,
It's obvious you did your homework, and you're to be congratulated. And you asked good questions, and Katya gave some great answers. Thank you both.
thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Gary asks, Katya, are you aware of the work of the Yiddish Book Center in Amherst, Massachusetts?
No, I'm not, unfortunately.
It might be like a worthwhile connection to share your film with them and to see It's called the
I'll make a
Yiddish Book Center.
screenshot.
We've
Mhm.
had some very nice programs with them over the years.
They're very interesting. Thank you. Yeah, I'll check it out.
Well, I have a question. Did you find it was common that the Jews and non-Jews in Ukraine lived so closely and so well together, or were these communities just oddities?
I think that there were not so many Shtetlers that persevered after the war, and the ones that did, I guess, had to. There were lots of people who, well, I mean, not lots of, again, there were some people who managed to survive the war, either being drafted in the army and again surviving, or by sheer miracle, like Amelia, who survived again miraculously, or by or like someone who were evacuated, and then after the war ended, they returned to these shtetls and sort of rebuilt their communities. And from what I also know is that many people were going to Chernovitz, because Chernovitz, this is where Rabbi Noack is having his reception. Chernovitz until 1940 was not Soviet, so it became Soviet only in 1940. And it was widely known as a Jewish town, and it was like very vibrantly Jewish. So those who survived, lots of people went not just to these tiny shtetls, because the pain was still there, because the people were killed in the nearby woods. So for instance, Emilia, who is the 99-year-old character, she told me, that's not in the film, but she told me that she never went back to her hometown, Khmelnyk, because everyone was killed there, and she just had bad memories. So she moved to a bigger city of the Soviet interior. Like, so she, for example, went to Lvov. Lvov was a big, and also again very Jewish town after the war. But these were not shtetls. These were, like, I looked up the term. Shtetl is a tiny Jewish town, and there was a word I think in Yiddish that's called shtot. Shtot is a kind of like a bigger Jewish city. So Chernovitz and Lvov were, and Vinnytsia as well, were very Jewish during the Soviet era, the post-war Soviet time. But again, like these shtetl Jews, like every Jewish family, they wanted for their kids to have a better education. And obviously there was no education, there was no good education in these small towns, because they were run by small town traders, like shoemakers, the ones that Volodya is talking about in the opening of the film. And so there was no prospect living in these small towns. So they were sending their kids to bigger towns, not Moscow, but this could be Vinnytsia or Lvov. So they would stay living in Ukraine, or Chisinau, in case with Moldova. So but I don't know if I answered your question. I mean, like these were very, very small shtetls, and there were not too many that sort of survived. But again, the key reveal of my film is that they were there, but not too many Jews lived there.
I'm not sure if Alan was also talking about.
You are on mute.
Oh.
I don't hear you.
Oh, I don't know. Can you hear me now?
What happened?
I don't know.
Uh-oh.
Uh,
Uh-oh. Can
I
you
think
hear
it's
me?
on your
I
end.
don't hear anyone.
Uh-oh. Testing, testing.
Hmm.
Must be on her
Wait a
end,
second.
right?
I don't hear anyone. I'm
Ah.
sorry. Let me just double check.
Yeah, I know. Must be her internet.
My AirPods are on.
Jeez.
I don't know. Just give me a second. Hello?
Better?
Yeah.
Yes.
No?
Can you hear?
Oh,
No
give me a
hearing?
second.
Oh, she must have lost her connection, right? I mean, I don't know.
Can you hear us?
Testing. Nothing?
Oh,
Well, luckily,
Let me just.
no. Can you hear us now?
Just give me 1 sec. Give me. It says
Yeah,
that
we can
the
hear you.
replay is on. Give me 1 second. I'll call. I'll ask my husband. Wait a second, please.
Just
The vicissitudes of internet programs.
yeah. Almost then.
luckily we got most of it in.
We're going to leave you folks. So have
Okay.
a nice evening and thank you all. It was a wonderful program.
I am back. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. I hear you now.
Oh, great.
I don't know what happened. I'm so sorry.
Oh, thank you so much.
But did you hear what I said? What I was answering your question? Oh, okay. Thank God.
Rabbi, I think my husband has one question, if you don't mind, and then we'll close soon because I think it's 8 o'clock already. So go ahead, Dan.
Hello,
Hi.
my name is Dan. I enjoyed the movie tremendously, and just to get to the point, something struck me because I'm from Romania. The word vertigen struck me, and I just looked it up right now during the show. Did you ever think what it meant? Vertigen.
No.
Zhenshtina is woman, right? That's the last part of the word. Virtus is virtuous in Romanian. Now, Moldova is a mixed up Romanian, Russian, and maybe Ukrainian. So there's all sorts of non-grammatical formations there, but it seems to me, you could do the research. Vertigen means virtuous women.
So that's where
Interesting. Thank you very much.
You only have 2 minutes to find it.
well, it has been such a pleasure. Unless there are any more comments, Rabbi, I don't know. I cannot. Are there any more comments or? Oops, I think from God.
I had such a good time watching the film. Thank you so much.
It was wonderful.
Thank you.
The only comment that I would like to make is, and I think Alan was referring to it, the friendships between the non-Jews and the Jews in the Shtetlers seem to be tremendous. I mean, they seem to get along. They seem to an Ukrainian woman saw the film, who registered, and she said to me, I was so touched by the scene where Jews help the non-Jews on Sunday and the non-Jews help the Jews on Shabbat. She remembers that, doing all of that. So it seems that these friendships, this closeness of the two communities, which Volodya refers to at the end of the film, seem to be existent in the shtetl, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted very much to include this moment, but again, didn't for some reason. That there was a profession, not the profession, but but the Jews we call probably you know that the non-Jews, and for Shabbat, and that was called Shabbat Goem, to do the work for them.
Turn on the lights. Was that?
Yeah, to turn the lights, to turn the lights, to
Mhm.
kindle the fire, and the Russian ovens. Yeah, that was very practiced in the Shtetlers.
Mhm. Yeah.
So again, it was a mixed world. But I wanted to say that again, these were Soviet shtetl Jews, and they again, they lived under the roof of this like Soviet empire. So before the war, the situation was a little different. So there were before that, I'm surprised you haven't asked this question about the pogroms, because here in the US, what people know about shtetls is they know that there were pogroms going on. And why there is no mention of pogroms in my film, because again, this film is based on the live memories of these particular people. And even the oldest one, who was born in 1917, that's the year of revolution, she has no recollection of pogroms, because the pogroms were over, I guess after the civil war, which ended in, if I'm not mistaken, in 1922. But anyway, she was a kid back then. If anyone remembered that, these would be her parents, I guess. So before the revolution, during the Tsarist time, it was a different situation. During the Soviet period, there was a lot of giving away of Jews. That's what Emilia again brings up. And that was a terrible thing. And they somehow had to return back to either to these places, like I mentioned, or to the bigger places and live next to these people. And this is again, live next to these neighbors. Because again, this is not in the film. Sophia told me this. Sophia, the gefilte fish cook, she told me a story that when they returned to their small shtetl, her mother saw cookware, like I think it was something like a Passover cookware. She saw that Passover cookware at her neighbor's house, and she told me that she knew from which house she took it, and she never returned it, and her mother never was never friends with this neighbor anymore, and these relations, I think there was a lot of trauma and a lot of pain, obviously. Yeah, but they had to sort of go on and live with these people. And again, Volodya the hat maker, he belongs to a different generation. He was born during the war in 1942, and he was really grateful to the Jews because they taught him his craft. But this is again, I mean, like it was all complicated, I would say. And I tried to deliver this message also, that it was not, some people go away with the feeling with this film that it is like some sort of like idealistic world. It was not idealistic. And I tried to show that too. There was a lot of pain. It was not just so bright, and it was a difficult, at times nice neighborship.
Well, you end on a hopeful note, and I want to, on behalf of the congregation, we want to thank you so much, Katia, for being so open to sharing the film with us, and so answering our emails so promptly. It was really a pleasure meeting you, and we
thank you so much
for all your work, and wish you the best of luck. I hope you win many more awards all over the world. I know that.
Thank you, Mary.
I know that your film is going to be in Peru, because I have a cousin who said to me that your film is going to be in Peru, in Lima, I think. So are you
Oh yeah, that's another kind of like privately run initiative
Oh,
from a woman from Switzerland, and
oh,
she actually runs this Likrat, this youth Jewish youth organization in Moldova, and she also runs an organization called the Living Stone organization, and there were some people who signed up for watching the film. Yeah.
yeah, that I
So
have.
yeah, so it's not a festival, but it's something like what we just had here. It's going to be something like that.
Yes. Well, thank you so much again. And Rabbi, I don't know if you want to say a few parting words.
No, I really appreciate I really appreciate this conversation and the opportunity to get immersed in the world that you presented in the film. So thank you.
Thank you very much for having me, and I really loved the questions. And Mary, you really do have the skills of a good interviewer. Thank you very much, and you prepared very well. And yeah, thank you so much for wonderful questions and reactions. And it makes me very happy that you love the film. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Yeah.